Welcome back, everyone. Governor Scott Walker of Wisconsin is considered a rising star of the Republican Party and a potential presidential candidate in 2016. He's also up for re-election this fall. And a poll by Marquette University Law School shows he's in a tight race with his Democratic challenger. So joining me now to talk about that and much more, he is the author of Unintimidated, A Governor's Story and a Nation's Challenge, and that is Scott Walker. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Great to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
You know, President Obama spoke today. He said he doesn't have a strategy yet for taking action against ISIS in Syria. As our White House correspondent said, he probably wanted a mulligan on that. What do you think of what the president said, and what should he do?
Well, I think it's tough. I understand why he's concerned about having a strategy, but I think at this point, it doesn't matter whether you're Democrat or Republican, we'd like to have a president who ultimately has a strategy. Obviously, as your last segment just talked about, some really troubling things happening all around the world, but particularly with ISIS. And, you know, we have a connection in Wisconsin to James Foley. He went to Marquette University, where one of my sons actually goes. They just had a vigil there the other night, just some horrific stories. And obviously, we just saw, as you pointed out on air, images of other parents who are equally concerned about their own loved ones.
And you mentioned the segment before. Let's talk a little bit more about that, Governor. Being a governor from the Midwest and the news of American terrorists having roots in Minnesota, do you fear an increase in homegrown terror?
Well, that's been an ongoing concern, but I think this is a very public example of that for some time in our state and across the country, I think state by state as well as nationally, there's been an ongoing concern that threats against America's homeland wouldn't just be targeted at places like New York or Washington, D.C., but that they could be anywhere. And that oftentimes they could be somewhat organic, that they wouldn't just be people coming in from other parts of the world, but they could be people coming in and trying to recruit people, whether it's in Minneapolis, Milwaukee, Chicago, or anywhere else across the country. That is a real ongoing threat, and it's something that we've got to take seriously, and it's something we've got to deal with not just at the federal level, but at the state and even at the local level.
Let's keep our focus in the Midwest now, and I want to ask you about what we saw in the streets of Ferguson, Missouri this month, Michael Brown's death and the resulting demonstrations. What do you believe is at the root of that?
Well, I don't know. You know, obviously there's tensions that go far beyond just this particular incident, and so those have to be addressed not only in Missouri, but in states and communities all across America. I do know, for example, in our state, we just passed this last year. In fact, I signed a law. I think it's the first law in the country that removes the review of a homicide or of a shooting death by a law enforcement official from that agency, so that it protects not only the family and loved ones of that individual who are obviously concerned, but also, assuming a law enforcement individual is doing something legitimately, it also protects them and provides a third party. I think in those instances where there's already tensions that go far beyond that particular incident, the more objective, the more removed it can be, the more that it eases some of those tensions, because obviously this is inflamed.
Okay, I want to continue on with Hillary Clinton and Ferguson, okay? And I want to play some of her remarks, which she said about Ferguson, talking about I want to talk about the inequalities that she talked about today in Ferguson. Okay, so she said that there are inequalities in this country that must be dealt with. It took her a long time to speak out about this. Many people said that she was running from what happened in Ferguson. I don't know if you got a chance to hear her comments, but what did you think of them?
Well, I heard a little bit today, and they seem to be, one, obviously a long time coming, but somewhat selective. She talked about being proud of people who spoke out and who rallied, but ignoring others who obviously, in some ways, did things that were quite the opposite of that. She talked about being concerned about law enforcement officials who might have brought fear and only limited to some who were acting professionally. I think you've got to address the good and the bad from all segments out there if you're going to comment on that. And obviously there's many concerns that go around, but this is something where, you know, leadership requires telling it like it is. And you know, I don't have full knowledge to everything that happened there. Like most of America, I'm going to be watching the folks in Missouri to see what's happened. And as I mentioned, in our case here in Wisconsin, we're proud of the fact that we have a law that we believe would diffuse a situation like this from ever happening in our state.
Okay, more on Hillary.